This is Joe, and I think we last spoke on March, and we spoke about the 4 different missions. So can it be full screen? Yeah, let's try to get full screen. Okay, so we last spoke on March, and first of all, we appreciate all of you coming online, especially listen to Master Joe Huang sharing with us about the story of the Buddha and also the enlightened path. I think all of us we do know that in Tzu Chi, this is what we do, and it is very important that we continue on this journey. So while we're bringing up the PPT, let us talk more about what Sifu just spoke about, and what we're going to talk about today. It's essentially the world that we're living in is filled with difficulties, right? All the problems that are happening in our lives. It's actually it gives us a lot of troubles. Every day you go to do your things, right? You live your life, and it's not going to be problem free. It's going to be like right now. We are experiencing difficulties, right? So it isn't going to. There are always going to be problems. But how do we get through these problems, right? How do we get through these problems? Yeah, I'll look at that. All right. Okay. So great. All right. Okay. I can't. Okay. This is okay. Very good background. Okay. Okay. All right. So what we're going to talk about today is so life is full of challenges, and it's waiting for us to overcome. In that, if we don't overcome these problems, the problems will overcome us, and we will be destroyed. We'll be defeated by these problems, and no one wants to be defeated by the problems. So how can we get through these problems and full of challenges? Hang on. I think it's on. Yeah. Okay. So how can we overcome these problems? And I think a lot of people think that the answer is something called Dharma. Like it's going to get us through the trouble, right? All the problems that we encounter is supposed to be answered by this word called Dharma. And all the things that Master talks about is supposed to be the answer to everything. But wait, but hang on a second, right? Everyone's problem is different. How does Dharma actually solve your problem? How does it actually come into the problems that we all have? Like, for example, if we're in different countries, how is this the answer, right? For example, if you go onto Google, right, and you type in the address, right, anywhere you want to go, you type it in, and it's supposed to help you map out a route that would take you to your destination. But it will give you maybe 3 or 4 different routes. It will give you 3 or 4 different ways to get there. And but the problem is, why does it give you 3 or 4 different routes? Because for every place that you want to go, there are different ways. You make a left here, you make a right here, you go straight here, and it's different. But suppose you're going from your home to where Tzu Chi office is. But the next day, you aren't going from your home. You're telling your friends to go to the Tzu Chi office. Now, you can't tell them the same direction that you drive from your home, right? You can't tell them, oh, you start straight, and then you go make a left turn, and then on the second stop, you make a right turn. You can't tell them the same direction because your friend is going from his house, not your house. So going to the same office doesn't mean that you need the same direction. So same thing, Dharma is the same. You can't just tell them, you can't tell everybody the same answer because it isn't going to work with everybody, right? So same thing, a direction tells you go straight by two kilometers and then make a left turn. Well, it will be different from when your friends have to go to the office, right? So directions aren't always the same. And that means that Dharma isn't the answer. We always think that Dharma is the answer, but it's not. Then what is it? So we always hear about this, right? Give a man a fish and you feed him for a day. Obviously, in Tzu Chi, we don't give men a fish. We give them rice, okay? We give them rice. But you teach a man how to fish, or you teach a man how to farm, and you feed him for a lifetime, okay? So it's not about giving them fish or rice. It's not about giving them a direction from your home to the office. Then what do you give them? You give them how to fish. You teach them how to fish. So rather than giving them the answer, rather than telling them how to get through the challenge and the obstacle, you should teach them how to find the way around the problems. And that's what Dharma is. Dharma is actually the guidance and the strength to help us find the answer. And that's what Master is teaching us, giving us the ability to find a way to get to the answer. Find a way to get to where you want to go to. That's what Dharma is. Because everybody is going to face different problems in your lifetime. Whether it's going to be between you and your children, or going to be you and your spouse, or you and your coworkers, your friends, your in-laws, your family, everybody. It's going to take a little bit different to help you deal with the problems. And Dharma isn't a one answer. It's not just one size fits all. It actually works for all different situations, but different Dharma fits the different situations. So it isn't just one. That's what Dharma is. That's why Master speaks to us every day, because she wants to tell us all the different ways that we can find the answer. And she wants to tell us all the different ways that we could get through our problems that we see every day. Okay, so let us show you the next picture, and this is called Titanic. It's a Titanic. It's a very big ship, a boat. It's a ship that hit the iceberg and it sunk. Why am I showing you this? It's because, when we cannot get through the problems, when we are encountered with a problem and we don't get through them, this is what happened. The ship sank or sunk. And that's what happened, right? You go into a quarrel, you go into a conflict, you start yelling at people, or people start yelling at you. Nothing gets done and things doesn't work. That's what happened when you hit a rock or when you hit an iceberg. So what does Dharma do for you? For example, if I tell you that there is an iceberg 10 kilometers straight ahead from you, yes, you can make a right, you can make a left, you can go around it. But what if on the very, very, next day, you tell another person who is traveling the same route, are you going to tell them, should they make a left or should they make a right? Because the route will be a little bit different. The ship will be different. The bottom will be different. Everything will be different. So while it works for you, it might not work for the other ship that is going through the same lane. Same thing. The same thing, the Dharma that works for you might not work for somebody else. So while you're sharing with them all the wonderful stories that you get from Tzu Chi, they might not be hearing it, and they might think that this doesn't work for me. So how does it work? How does Dharma work? And Dharma works like this. So this is a very simple picture, right? You have a rock there, and the boat is coming, and the ship is called Titanic. It's very cute, and this is before it was sunk. Okay, so you see that if it keeps on going, it's going to hit the rock, and it's going to sink, and there's a trouble, right? The trouble is going to be there. You can't just keep on going. But what the Dharma does is that it's like water. Dharma fills the ocean with even more water, such that when the water level rises, that what used to hit the rock or the iceberg, now the ship was able to cruise through it on top of it. And that's what the Dharma is supposed to do. It doesn't tell you how to get through one problem, but it helps you build up enough resilience. It helps you build up enough energy so that when you are encountered with these problems, you don't even see the problems, right? When you go through these rocks, you don't even know that how many rocks are underneath the sea level. You don't see them because you don't hit them at all. So that's what the Dharma helps you. It helps you find the answer, and it helps you cruise through the problems. So how does it actually do that, right? Dharma does this by telling you where we're going. It tells you what we need to do. And it tells you to continue and trust this. And it tells you how to overcome with all the difficulties. And the three things that I'm going to share with you today are exactly these. First, selflessly help others. This is what we're all doing right now, right? Second thing, continue to do this. Persist and persevere. Even though you're going to hit some problems, continue and persist. And third, be positive. Always having this positive energy around you so that you are able to continue. So 3 things that we are doing: selflessly help others, persist and continue, and also be positive, having a very positive energy about you. Okay, so let me tell you about the story. And I think this is a story that Master Joe Huang also talked about. Okay, so all right. So Master Joe Huang talked about the story of the Buddha. The Buddha made the initial vow when the Buddha was in hell, and all that the Buddha wanted to do. So this was the drama that we actually tried to portray the Buddha. Okay, the Buddha was in the hell and was trying to help somebody else towing a cart that was burning with fire. And that was all he did. And why was the Buddha in hell? Because there was some karma. He did something wrong, and that's why he was in the hell, right? That was before he was the Buddha. But he wanted to help this old person towing this flaming car. So he asked the person in front, "Can I please help this old man?" And obviously, the guard that was in hell was very, very vicious. So you cannot talk, and the moment you talk, they shouted back, "You shouldn't talk. You shouldn't help." And this was the person, it was old person, has to tow the car because that was, his job. Okay, that was his karma. So, but the Buddha said, "Well, look at him. He's so old, and how can he do this, right?" So he took over, and he wanted to pull the car, helping the car. And very quickly, the guard was very, very unhappy. So very quickly slashed upon the Buddha at the time and cracked his skull and killed him at the time. So I don't know how you can kill somebody when somebody's already in hell, but obviously this is how the story goes. And so when the Buddha with this initial vow to try to help somebody, he came back to the next life, and that was in his mind, trying to help somebody. So eventually, all these lifetimes, right? All these lifetimes, 2,500 years ago, he enlightened. He was awakened as the Buddha. He now realized, how can everybody become like him? This is the Dharma, right? How can everybody become like him? He began to tell everybody, hey, there are 3 things you need to do, and it's exactly these 3 things. Help others, continue to do this, and then be positive about it. Don't moan, and don't complain. Just be positive, having this positive energy. 3 things. All you need to do to become the Buddha are these 3 things. Okay. And what happened? Nobody believed him. Nobody believed that being the Buddha was so easy. Only 3 things, right? Help others, continue to do this, don't stop, and then be positive about it. And that was all that there is, right? 3 things to become the Buddha. And nobody believed it. Why? Because this path is so simple. There are a lot of people that says, this is too easy. How can it be possible that all you need to do is to help others, continue to do it, and be positive about it, and that's too easy? And so they don't believe him, and they won't do it. And then the other group, they think it's too difficult. I won't do it because helping others is easy. But how do you continue, right? Sometimes you want to help others, and most of the time, they don't let you help them. And that's the problem, right? So people think it's too easy, so they don't want to do it. And there are other people that think it's too difficult, and they don't want to do it. And there's a group of people that think that it's actually doable, and they continue to do this, and that's called the Bodhisattva path, okay? And so now that you're on the Bodhisattva path, that's what we're doing. We're helping people, and then we're also continuing to do this, And then we're making sure that we're staying very positive about this. So these three things, always coming back to three things. Let's talk about the first thing. Selflessly helping others. Helping others require us to first know that there are people that are suffering. So for example, all these disasters, right? If I don't tell you where this is, you probably can't tell where these places are because they all look the same. People losing their homes. The roads, the buildings are destroyed. The collapsed building, people dying, and all these people, they're coming in and out. And I'm sure, I don't need to tell you where this is, but I think there are people online, they're from Nepal. You probably can guess where this is. This is from Nepal back in 2015. And there are these floodings. If I don't tell you where these are, you're probably not going to know where they are. Why? Because all disasters look the same. But you must first know where they are. You must know where the disasters are. Otherwise, you can't even help them. And that's why in City, the first thing that we do is we are opening our eyes and our views to everywhere in the world so that we know that there are these places, there are people needing our help. The next thing that we do is we go there and we help them. So whether that there's a forest fire or whether it's a flood, or whether it's a tornado, hurricane, or a typhoon, or anything, earthquake, whatever it is, we now know about this. And we will proceed to these places and we will help them. And that's the very first thing that we should do as a Bodhisattva path, is regardless of whatever the disaster it is, we can go there. If we can do it safely, then we will do it. So whether it's a forest fire, hurricane, tornado, and all these things, that's what we do. But it becomes hard. It's not always easy. That's why we need to continue and don't stop. Do help while we can. Do everything that we can. And that's the second part. So the first part is easy, is to know the disasters and to go and help. But the second part is hard because it gets difficult. For example, recently what we have is the COVID-19. How do you help people? Now everybody's locked up at home. How do you help people when you don't even have the personal protection equipment? When you don't have the mask yourself? How do you help people? How do you help people when you yourself are in need of help? All these are reasons why it becomes very difficult. But Master told us, and so did the Buddha, continue, don't stop. Don't stop just because we hit a challenge. Let's figure out how we can go around it. So, for example, this was back in Myanmar, and we saw that the flooding came, and the story was very heartbreaking because during the rainy season, these farmers, what they did was they would take out loans. They would take out loans to get the seeds to plant for the next harvest. But the problem is the rainy season comes, and they took all of their plants and crops away with the flood. The next thing, the water recedes, and what the farmers did was they already used all their earnings, all their money to have the seeds for the previous planting. Now they have nothing. Now they have to take more loan. They have to borrow more money in order for them to get what they needed. So then they took out more loan and they buy more seeds and plant and then be prepared. Yet more rain come, more flooding came, and then they lost everything. When the same thing happened 3 times, they're heavily in debt and they couldn't do anything anymore. So what happened? Our volunteers go there, and even if it's in the depth of the water, we go there and we provided them with the seeds. So then they are prepared to plant for them in the next for the next season. Master told us that even though their planting season began in a few months, what we can do right now is we can give them other crops that they could also plant, other means that allow them to have more and quicker financial return. So then they're able to get something in return fast, and then they're able to continue from that point on. And so, amazingly, after less than a year, in less than the 6 months, they were able to have a very good harvest because of all the help that they were given. But the most important part isn't about the journey that allowed them to have a full harvest. The most important part is while on this journey, they are now being taught to help others as well. Their first idea wasn't to go back to repay all the debt, but the first thing that they needed to do was think about now they are having the full harvest. What can they do to help other people in need? And that's when in Myanmar, they now understand that they can have what we call these rice banks. And what they did was every day when at their home, when they're cooking for one meal, they would grab a fistful of rice and put it into this bank so that every day they would have a fistful of rice and put it aside for helping other people. And even when they are running low in their rice, even when they're running low in their everyday, when they're eating, they think to themselves, I am helping people. And even though today I'm running low with rice, but I'm still not going to stop. I'm still going to continue and persist. That goes with the second part. Remember the three things we talked about? Buddha told us that the three things that we need to do, helping others, continue to do it, and be very kind and positive about it. So what they did was they begin to help people, and they begin to even when they are running low with their own rice and with their own meal, they continue to do this even though it's their storage is low, but they continue, and then they're very positive about it. What they told themselves, maybe for me it's only one meal that I need to skip. By tomorrow I'll have enough, but for the people that I will be helping, they would have no way of getting to the next meal. At least I know where my next meal is. So they are willing to help, and they're very positive about it. They don't look at themselves as victims. They look at themselves as people that are willing and able to help others. And when you're on this journey and when you're doing these three things together, then you are indeed on the path to become the Buddha, to be enlightened as well. So we see them very happily, whether it's adults or young people or kids. They're all happily. Why are they so happy? They're giving something that they actually need themselves. But they realize, I don't need all of this. I can survive without this bucket of rice. I can do without them. And that's what they did. And that's what they're being positive, very happy about this. So they're helping and they're continuing, even though it's very difficult. And they're being very happy about it. All the smiles that you can see. And then you realize that when it's coming from one family, you can't do much. But when it's coming from every family in the village, you realize that you are now able to help a lot more people. And that's their story. And this is the story that's shared with you that, yes, you can. Everybody can indeed become the Buddha if you follow these three steps. Helping people, don't stop, and be very positive about it. Smile about this and be happy. Be truly joyous in the giving. Our brothers and sisters in Africa, what Master Joe Huang showed us, it's the same thing. Brothers and sisters in Africa, they are also very happy, even though they themselves are not very rich in all these resources. But they're very happy in giving, and they're well on their way to become the Buddha as well. And as I understand that today, we also have our brothers and sisters from Jordan. So they will be very understanding of the refugees situation. And also our brothers and sisters from Malaysia and Indonesia. Also, we see in Thailand, there are all these refugee problems in the world. Also, the refugees that we are come to understand, mostly from Europe. So they have taken a long trek, taken a long walk from wherever their original country is, whether it's from Afghanistan, whether it's from Syria, whether it's from other regions. The refugees they take a long distance traveling to get to where their dream location is. And usually that's Europe. Usually it will take them whether by sea or by land. And whenever it's by sea, we hear about all these very, very heartbreaking stories where they hit problems in the ocean or during the sea traveling. But even if they go by land, there's no guarantee that they will get to where they need to get to. So years ago, we see that they would stop at train station and they would not know where to go. But our volunteers are there. They begin to bring this joy to them. They show them that no, you are not just refugees. You are actually our family. You are now part of us and we can help you. But most importantly, you have to be positive about this. Bring joy to your life. Bring hope to your life. You are no longer people that are being abandoned. You are now people that are loved, and you are now people with hope. So when the weather is really cold, we brought them these jackets. We show them that this is possible. That you could also bring this jacket. You can also bring this hope to other people that we couldn't help. So they now have this sense of mission, not just as volunteers, but they're able to share with other people that, hey, there are these people that are helping. I can be of help too. I might not have all the resources, but I can also share the words of kindness. I can also share the words of kindness to share with people that this is doable. And we talked about our African volunteers, brothers and sisters in Africa. They go into the very, very rural areas in their village, and they go and they find the people that are in need. Along the way, they will sing, and along the way, they carry the rice and they carry the blanket with them. So then they would go to all these places to share these words of wisdom and words of blessing and words of hope. Follow the three things once again. This is very simple. In Tzu Chi, that's all that we're doing. Three things. One, help others selflessly. Two, don't stop. Whenever you can, wherever you can, help people. Third, you're going to find some problems. You're going to have some difficulties and challenges. Don't stop. Be positive about this and be happy that we're able to, at least we're the ones helping, not the ones being helped. And I'm sure we all know about the stories from Turkey, the refugees from Syria. They're also coming to Turkey, and we're now having schools and classes able to enable them to have more positive future. But I want to share with you this story. This also happened in Burma, in Myanmar, and this was a sort of like a relief, a house of relief that was established by a Buddhist monk or a Buddhist monastery in Burma, in Myanmar. And they do provide medical attention, and they do provide housing and also food for the people that need them. However, the situation, the conditions there aren't always so good. When you have a lot of people that are flooded there, then all these situations aren't so easily handled. You don't have enough doctors. You don't have enough nurses. You don't have enough medication. And the people there, if they need medical attention, they're there, they're waiting for help. And while there are food provided for them, but sometimes the medical attention isn't so much available. So what we're seeing in this picture is that we have an elder lady who had the bed sore. And the bed sore, if you know about this, the bed sore eats away our flesh. It only gets bigger, and it's very difficult to treat, especially when it's so big. Our volunteers, our TEMA doctors and nurses, they would regularly come to this place, and they would tend to these people. And you see them lying side by side. They all have a place to stay. They all have food coming to them. They all have food to be able to provide for them. But this location, while it's a place, a shelter, but it's very, very difficult. So you see that this is their living condition. You see that even though there's food provided for them, but at the same time, the food was provided, and some of them can't move. The only thing they can do is with their own hands, eating. But you can imagine the food is next to them. So is their waste. Everything they do, they can't go around. There just isn't enough volunteers. There isn't enough staff to help everybody. So they eat and they take care of everything on this bed. This is their situation. So a couple of years ago, we finally come to know about this place. And the situation there is very dire, even though they have a bed, even though they have the food for them to eat, but it is very difficult. On the right side, you see the picture of a man who has this, who had a surgery, but he couldn't have enough money to make sure that all the wounds were properly taken care of. So at the time, there was an opening on the side of the rib. They couldn't close this opening. So what did they do? They stuff things in there to stop the bleeding. So after a while, as you can probably tell, that it begins to stink. You know, the body would decay, and then all the things happen. So you need to exchange. You need to change. You need to change the dressings. You need to change all the things that you stuff in there. So this is what happened. They pulled out, and they're 15 meters long. I mean, can you imagine all the things you have to stuff in there to stop the bleeding and to stop the gaping hole? And so our volunteers were there. They couldn't believe what they were seeing. This is almost like a living hell. But at least they were getting the food, right? They weren't dying of hunger. At least they were getting enough treatment. Not all of them, not everything, but at least they were getting taken care of. I don't even know how this man was able to live a life with quality. But I'm sure it wasn't. But for him, it was enough that he was living his life, and that was enough. So our volunteers were there, and we were engaged with the residents there, hoping to turn this around, hoping that we are able to bring something, a change to this place. So once again, the three things that I keep on mentioning today: do something to help others. Don't stop. When you see the problem, when you see a difficulty, continue on. And then be very positive. Always see the positive. Always be very kind and very positive about all these situations. So even though we see this situation as very grim, we see this as very hopeless, but we continue. We work with the institution, and we come back. The volunteers from Penang, from Malaysia, they came back to the abode, and they talked to the master. And for 2 years, for years, we try to figure out what we can do for them. There must be something that we can do. So yes, there was. We figured out that there were many patients with tuberculosis, which is a respiratory disease that, if not isolated, will actually be very quick to spread to other people. And we realized that these patients with TB, they aren't being isolated. They're staying in the same room as other patients that do not have TB. So the one thing that we could do is we can provide housing, temporary housing, with our temporary classrooms like this, that we can allow them to move them into a better place where they can finally get a good night's sleep or a good rest. And not only that, we provided several housing units to allow isolation, and also to allow people who need to recover, and bigger room. It's not so crowded, not so cramped, and it's a much better lighting and everything. So there was this story that came out. What we eventually found out was, the day that we finished, the day that we handed over these buildings, the night they moved in, they were all so happy. They were all very happy that they were able now to finally move into a place where they can stay, very, very different from their previous locations. And they're very happy. But the night that they moved in, the very next day, one of the residents passed away. And it gives all the people tremendous sadness that the person passed away. Yet at the same time, we realize that Master told us that even though that that person passed away, but he has had one night of peeking into the life from heavens. And that was a blessing for that person. So at least for the duration of his entire life, it wasn't just always stuck in the same place, but rather it was that one night you had a glimpse of how it feels to be in the heavens. So that tells you that throughout our journey to help other people, we're going to have these challenges. We're going to find that there are things that we cannot do, but always be positive. Always remember what message share with us. Be very positive. Always feel content, gratitude, understanding, and accommodation. These are the four soups that we have, and always be respectful, be grateful, and then loving to all and everybody. So that was one story that we have heard about that was really really touching. But I'm going to share with you another story that that we heard several years ago. This was back in the forest fires, the forest fire back in Canada, and it was something that at the time that I remember while Master was on the road trip at the time, and we keep on getting updates about the Fort McMurray fires, and everybody evacuated. There was a long line. There was a long line of people that evacuated from this, from the burning fire, and you can imagine that everybody how the, how they feel while they're leaving their home, packing everything up, and it stretches out for miles and miles of people that are leaving. However, as they are leaving and they're arriving at a much safer place, they come to a place where the government has set up these places where they can get the relief goods. And I think this is always something that's very soothing, is that you come to a place and you know that you're temporarily displaced. It's very different from the refugees, right? The refugees, they have nowhere to go and they have nothing. However, in Canada, it will be something totally different. You have nowhere to go. You're displaced, but you are given a shelter, and there are these places where all these NGOs and nonprofit organizations, they come here and they set up their booth and set up their places, tables, and they provide all these things. So where we are, we're under this heading of beddings. Why? Because we provide blankets. Okay, so they will come to us and we will give them blankets. However, if you are there long enough, okay, so any new arrivals, they come into this place and they will quickly being directed to wherever they need to go to. If you need food, if you need water, and if you need clothes, if you need bedding, if you need all these different things, they will direct you to all these different places. However, the place that is different is that you come in, and if you don't need anything, or you just need somebody to talk to, they will direct you to us. Why? Because amazing, for some reason, coming to our booth, coming to this table, people always leave smiling. Okay, so the people that are running this place, the government official, they don't know why. It's just very special, this place. And wherever people come in crying or don't know where to go, they direct them to this place, Suji. Okay, and they don't know why. And so, and they think it's the blankets. They think it's the blanket. Someone comes in and they hug the blanket. They feel like, well, this is home, because if you have touched our blanket before, you know that the blankets are very soft to the touch. And obviously, we share with them how the blankets are, made from the plastic PET bottles, and everybody go, wow, wow, this is great. Okay. So when we're there, one of the local volunteers came to volunteer with us. So no, this lady, she is not a displaced individual. She was actually a local, and she came to volunteer with us. Okay, so you can see from a picture, she was grabbing onto the blanket very tightly. Why? Because she had been volunteering with us for about a couple of days, and she had to take her leaves. She had to leave. She couldn't come for the next week. So she spoke to our volunteer. She asked our volunteer, "Is it okay that I take one blanket with me?" And I wanted to ask everybody, as now you are our volunteer, right? If our volunteer, comes to you and asks, "Can I take a blanket with me, what would you say? Would you say it's okay? You can grab it. You can take one. You can take two if you need it. Or what would you say? And obviously, our volunteer, the volunteer in charge, was thinking at the time. The answer is no. We can't give it to you. Why? Because these blankets are for the people that are displaced. They're for people that need them. You, as a volunteer, here do not need them. You are here as a volunteer. You are not displaced. Okay, so the blankets are for those that are in need. Okay, so our volunteer was thinking, our person in charge was thinking, you've been here helping us for 2 days, and I'm very grateful. But how do I tell you no? I don't want to be that person to tell you, no, you can't take this blanket. So while he was thinking, and probably facial expression show a little bit difficulties, our volunteer, the lady, told him that, oh, the reason why I need a blanket is because I can't come for the next week because I'm actually a cancer patient. And for the next week, my chemotherapy is about to begin. And I feel that there's something about this blanket that everybody comes in, that they feel sorrow and sadness. But somehow, they got this blanket and they feel joyous. And I don't know what I'm going to see in the next week when there's going to be chemotherapy. I don't know what's going to happen. I'm very afraid. I'm fearful. And I wanted to have a blanket in my arms so that it gives me strength, like it had given to all the other people. So now our volunteer is thinking, right? Our volunteer is thinking, well, so it's not that you want it, you actually need it. So it's okay to give to someone who is in need, and she fits the criteria. So good, take it, go home, and best of luck to your chemotherapy. So this lady grabbed the blanket tightly, and that's how she left. She grabbed the blanket and she left. On her way home, she didn't, she walked her way home, but on her way, before she reached home, she went to see her friends because, as you probably know, beginning chemotherapy is something very difficult. So she went to her friend's house. And at the doorstep of her friend's house, she hears this unimaginably painful cry and scream from in the house. And she knew what it was. It wasn't her friend. It was the daughter of her friends. And the daughter was also ill and was also under treatment. And it wasn't looking good. So she was crying out in pain. She slowly opened the door, walked in, and saw her friends standing there, can't do anything, looking at the daughter that was lying in bed. And the only thing the parents could do was stare, because they couldn't do. And if you are a parent, you probably can imagine. You can wish that you could take away the pain, but you can't. So the daughter was in pain. And amazingly, what did she do? Our volunteer, the one with the blanket, walked up and did the only thing that she knew how to do for the past 2 days that she was with the volunteers. She took the blanket, faced with anyone that was crying. She opened her arms up with the blankets in her and wrapped the child with the blankets. And I don't know, whisper something. I don't know. I wasn't there. And amazingly, the child stopped crying. And the child not only stopped crying, the child began to laugh and smile. And the parents were like, whoa, how did you do this, right? And she said, you know how I did this? It's the blanket. This blanket came from Taiwan, and it was made from the PET bottles. But the magic is the PET bottle were recycled by all these old people. They're really old, like 60s, 70s, 80 years old. And every time they recycle, they put a little words of blessing. So the blanket is magical, right? So I've seen this with my own eyes. It helps so many people. They come in crying, and I did the same thing, and then they stop crying. That's all I did. It was magic, right? So the parents were very happy, and the volunteer left with the blanket with the child. So she left. She went home without a blanket and began her chemotherapy. Right. So 2 days later, 2 days later, she came back, and that's how we know the story. Right. 2 days later, she came back. And saw our volunteer and shared this story with our volunteer. A couple of days later, she came back, and our volunteer was in tears, right? Oh my goodness, you helped somebody. And then the volunteer was thinking, does that mean you need to get another blanket because you're, continuing your chemotherapy, and now you gave the only blanket away? And was thinking in his mind, right? But the lady was understanding. She said, I gave the blanket to the child, and days later, the child passed away. And her friends, the child's parents, asked if they could bury the child with the blanket wrapped around. And what did our volunteer say? Of course, of course. So the only blanket that she had was now with the child in the grave. So now she came back without a blanket, continuing the chemotherapy. And our volunteer was thinking, does that mean I have to give you another one? Right? But no, the lady came back, shared with us the story, and then told us, no, she's coming back not to get another blanket, but she had gotten it figured out. She understood that it wasn't the blanket that was the magic. It was herself all alone. She felt the hope, so she gave it to the child. The blanket was the medium that provided this hope. And she knew that it wasn't the blanket that gave her the power. It was herself. So now she was able to face the continued chemotherapy on her own. And that was what we talked about. Be positive. When you are very positive, when you are filled with positive energy, not only are you going to help others, but you're going to help yourself. And the positivity comes from understanding, from being content that you are not alone. You have all these volunteers around you. You are not alone. You are content with what you have. And you're grateful that all the people are around you. You understand that there are sufferings in this world, and you're willing to continue to help others. That's why Tzu Chi volunteers are always so positive, that they're having this energy about them, that when people see them, they feel hope. When people see them, they feel love. That's what the path needs. That's why the Buddha really told us these 3 paths that we need to do. Help others, and don't stop, and be positive. Because when you have all these 3 things together, you're on the right direction. And that's what Tzu Chi's journey is all about. It's taking us on this journey and teaching us to be positive. Even in the very negative times, we learn to be positive. So coming back to the 3 things that we keep on talking about today, that's Dharma. Dharma isn't something so difficult to understand. It's really, really simple. Help others. Don't stop. Do everything you can while you can. And be positive about it. Think about the bright side. Think about all the things you're doing to help others. Think about the love that you can bring to other people. Don't think about yourself like, oh, I need help. Oh, I need to be loved. Rather, think about the love you can give to other people. That's what happened when that volunteer lady realized it wasn't the blanket that was helping others. It was herself. It wasn't a blanket, so she was able to overcome whatever the problems that she had, whatever the difficulties. So this is what Master has already opened the path for you. The path is now open, and the road is paved, telling you the 3 things. Are you ready? Are you ready to be on this path? And for me, I didn't know that I was ready either. Let me share with you, for me, the journey was not easy either. I remember my very first bowing practice. It was very, very difficult. I'm sure for all of you, if you are coming from a different language, the entire bowing practice, all the people will be chanting. and you will not be able to chant anything because you don't understand what people are chanting. For me, I first got to know Tzu Chi when I was in US. Every character, I speak Mandarin. Every character I understand, but I don't know what they're chanting. So for me, it will be the same thing as you. It will be in this environment where it's so foreign to you. You don't know what you're doing. You're just doing exercise by bowing. Okay, that was what I was thinking. To me, it was so far away. Helping other people is something that I want to do, but I don't have the positive energy. I wouldn't continue. If I hit a problem, I would stop. So what changed? In my very first bowing practice, all I remember was that my head keep on bumping into the person in front of me. I keep on bumping into the butt. And that was the only thing I remember. Keep on bumping into the person in front of me. And the person behind me keeps on bumping into me. So I keep on having my head hitting the person, the butt of the person in front of me. And my butt is keep on being bumped into. And that was a very uncomfortable feeling for me. Okay, so that was the only thing I remember. I'm sure for some of you, that might be your experience. That might not be the very best experience in the world. But what changed? What changed? My very first time coming to Taiwan. Okay, so obviously things changed beyond that. But I remember my very first time coming to Taiwan. It was very different. The weather was very hot and it was very humid. And it was about 10 years that I haven't come back to Taiwan. I lived in the States for 20 years and I only come back to Taiwan twice because I didn't like Taiwan at all. And I didn't want to come back. But it was Tzu Chi that made me come back. So fine, I did. 2009, I came back. That was the first time after 10 years I came back to Taiwan. And that was with Tzu Chi. And I realized it's very, very different. The weather is different, but everything just different. Why? Because this is the home of Tzu Chi. And then I stepped onto Hualien, and I was prepared for my very first time to walk on the stage, to have Master face to face, put on the badge, and certify me as a commissioner. And I remember my first time face-to-face encounter with Master. It's, you always see Master on TV. You always see Master, in a very long distance. Like right now, most of us will see Master, through our online sessions, right? Or everyday online Dharma talk. My very first time face-to-face encounter with Master was when I walked up to him. And the story goes like this. You walk up, there is a designated place for you to stand. And you're supposed to stand there, and then you hold your hands out. You're going to have your ID badge on your hand. Master is going to take your ID badge, clip onto you, so that you are now certified, and your hands will still reach out, right? So she's going to take a envelope of blessing, a hongbao, a red pack, or it's just a commemorative coin in there, and she's going to put it on your hand, and then she's going to tap you on your shoulder and tells you to be diligent and work hard. And what that means is it's time to move on next. Okay, so the next person can come in and do the same thing again. So I was the first person, and I obviously didn't know all the little tricks. And now you know. If you haven't been certified, now you know the entire the nuances. So I didn't know. I didn't have anybody to look for, to copy, because I was the first one. So I walk on the stage. I stand at the spot where I'm supposed to stand. But I was very shy. You probably can't tell that I'm shy. The very first time seeing Master, and this close, just like this close, and I was very shy. So even though I stand in the spot, I lean backwards, so I have my hands reach out. Master took my badge, and when she wanted to clip onto me, she realized I was so far away. She couldn't. So she spoke to me. So if you wanted Master to speak to you, this is a very good way to do so. Okay, I don't recommend it. Please don't tell anybody that Joe tell you this. But if you want the Master to speak to you, this is one good way. So I was so far out, and she couldn't reach me. So she spoke to me the very first time. It wasn't next. It was come closer, because I was so far away. So she said to me, come closer. And I was in tears. Oh, Master wants me to come closer. And, and so I did. I come closer, and she put on this, the badge, and then she took the envelope, she put it on my hand, and she tapped me on the shoulder. That means next. But I didn't know. I continued standing there because I was so touched until the next person, like, hey, move along, right? So I move along. I come back down, and all the people around me, my Dharma family from the U.S., they quickly gather around me, and then they saw me crying, like, oh, what happened? And I share with them, the Master told me to come closer. And you know what? That's what I did. So after the certification, come closer is the very first time Master spoke to me. And I remember that. That was the very first 2 words. Actually, it was 3 characters. It was in Taiwanese. It was qua来, means come closer. Okay, so 3 characters. And I went home to my parents, and they all wanted to know how the experience was. And I said, the experience was, I need to come closer. Master wants me to come closer. So I am quitting my job in the US, and I'm coming back to Taiwan because Master wants me to come closer. And everybody said, you're crazy. That's not what she meant. She meant, you are too far away. You need to come closer. I said, yes, I was too far away. I was in the US. I need to come home. I need to come closer. And that's what happened. And that was 10 years ago. So that was my story. And I think that's the story with everyone else. Come closer. This is the path that needs everybody to come closer. Not just me. Master couldn't reach all of you unless we all come closer. The path is open. The path is ready. The road is paved. Are you ready to come closer? The 3 things to do is really, really simple. Help others. Don't stop. And help everybody. Don't stop. And be very positive. Be joyous in helping others. That's all we need. It's not difficult. People think it's too difficult. People think it's too easy, and that's why they don't do it. All we need to do is to come closer, walk the path, and be on the path. And that's all we needed to do. So that's my sharing for today. And I wish that there are more stories that we could share with you all. But I picked these stories because I want to show you that it is not always just about the things that we give them. It's more so important. It's about how you feel. When you are very positive about it, the true thing that's helping the people you're helping, it might not be the rice that you're giving. It's the positive energy. It's the love and the hope that you bring for them. And those are completely not something that has a price tag on it. It's completely priceless. And I think that's what Master is trying to give us. But first, we must all come closer. So thank you. That's my sharing for today. And I wish all of us will be able to come closer and get closer. And we're all coming back here and be on the path that Master has provided for us. Thank you.